moving very swiftly on to a very different thing once again, this time to the world of bakery and powerboating and all manner of things. Asif Rangoonwala. Asif.
Thanks, everybody. I'll start in the beginning with a little bit about myself. I'm a high school dropout, but I have an LSC with a PhD. You must be wondering what that is. I'm a lucky sperm count whose papa had dough. Okay. After working with my dad for 24 years, I learned everything I did from him. I went off on my own at the age of 40 to become an advisor in the financial services market. And I ran into two guys who had this great project about hamburger buns. Myself being a junk food eater, and my wife's a nutritionist, by the way, I actually thought it was a fantastic idea. It had to do with frozen breads. In the U.S., if you go to the grocery stores in the U.S., you'll find at least 50% of the products are frozen. In the U.K., it doesn't work that way because places are smaller, you don't have freezer space, and so on and so forth. Anyways, we started that in 1997, and by 1998, I've had my first plant up and ready. I had no sales. I invested £3.5 million in a plant and machinery. I got a great deal from a guy who was building a warehouse. He was stuck. He didn't have any money. We made a great deal and started it. My first sales were £13,000 in September 1998. By 2008, in May 2008, I sold my business. We were doing 55 million plus. We had 7.5 acres of factory. We had 7 plants. Just to put it into perspective, I was producing 135,000 buns an hour. I never stopped except for Christmas and Eid. 2 days in the year we stopped, and we were doing 35,000 baguettes an hour. Sorry. So we were producing a lot of dough. My timing was perfect. I sold it in May of this year, which, and it's all to do with the guy up there, because I don't think I'm that smart. But for the entrepreneurs and people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs or getting into business, there are a couple of things that in the last 35 years of working that I have learned and which have helped me. There's no shortcut to hard work, okay? If you're building something, you got to put in that 14 hours a day. There are no weekends, okay? You will get your weekend, but not in the first couple of years. If it's your vision and your idea, let me tell you, nobody else has got it. Okay, so if you give it to a manager and you think he's going to do it, forget it. It's never going to happen. So I would say don't move away from what you're doing because you're the best at it, okay? You must be completely flexible. Don't get stuck. There's no harm in making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. If you work, you make mistakes. Managers never make mistakes because they never work, okay? Sorry. Sorry. If you're anybody managers out there, I'm sorry. Always have an exit strategy. My dad used to always tell me, he said, son, it's not the guy who builds it, it's the guy who sells it. He's the smart guy, okay? If you build it and keep it, you'll go through cycles. I found in most of the businesses that I have worked in or created or built and sold on, when you're ready to sell, that's the right time. If you miss that, wait, because you're going to have to go back into the cycle and come back. I found it very rare that, you had the idea to sell it, and again, as I said, if you've missed that timeline, you've got to wait for the next cycle. So don't get desperate. If it's a good business, it will come back. Like I said, always have an exit strategy, okay? And once I had sold Eurobuns, I'd already been committed into 1 or 2 other businesses, and one of them happened to be a crazy idea, which was a sports and entertainment property called P1. I got into it for my sins because I thought I was a smart guy. I saw an opportunity which which was a sports property. And I thought I could take this, turn it around in 2 years, and make a killing. Well, it's 6 years. I've spent a lot of money. I have very few believers, but I'm getting there, okay? And it is going to take time. Powerboat P1 is all about sports and entertainment, and I'm trying to create this new word in the Oxford, vocabulary or dictionary. It's called sportainment. Okay, it's sports and entertainment, because going into the future, powerboating, and I'm just giving you a little brief about powerboating because I need as many people going on my website as I can. As many hits as I get, I count those. Well, it's all about the third motorsport, the ultimate motorsport. There have been two other lucky people before me. One was Bernie Ecclestone, and the other guy was, forget his name, he created MotoGP, okay? Motorboats is the third motorsport, okay, number one. Number two, nobody has got the space on water, okay? The world is covered by 2/3 by water. I have 780 kilometers of coastline, okay? I don't need to build a $300 million track, okay? My track is natural. I go there, I have a track wherever I go. So, there are a lot of benefits to this, but I could keep going on about this. As far as being entrepreneurs and times are really difficult right now, and this is when most people stand out, okay? And you make a difference when things are down. Everybody is a genius in a rising market, like we've seen so many, okay? All those geniuses have disappeared because it's a sinking market and there's no money out there, right? Except for the banks. But they're not lending us any money. My advice to all of you is that, look, when things are bad like this, this is the time you have to rely on yourself and your capability. And if you believe in yourself, you will get there. A last story I'll tell you, I met a guy at about 2 a.m. at a bar one night, and I'm sitting there talking to him for 20 minutes, and somebody came over and they said, "Do you know who this guy is?" I said, "Does it matter? He's been listening to me for 20 minutes. So he goes, "Wow, he's got a 30 billion cap." And I said, "Oh, right, okay." So the guy turned around, he said, "Look, he might be true, but he said, I've been listening to you for 20 minutes about this powerboat racing." And he said, "It's all about consistency, Asif." He said, "If you've been there 6 years and you spent all this money and you still have a business," he said, "you will arrive. It's just it's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how much more money you got to spend." Okay? Well, that's it. Thanks.